please tell us something brief about yourself and your background, please?
Sure. My name is Frankie Bass. I graduated from Riverside High School back in the late 60s. After graduating from Riverside High School, I attended Chattanooga City College, that's now part of UT. I got an associate degree in business. After finishing my formal education, I got a job at combustion engineering, where I worked for approximately 10 years. They were doing a layoff, so I took a voluntary layoff at combustion because I had just had my first child, thinking that I would have more time to spend with her. I am married to Edward Bass. We've been married 42 years this July. We have 2 daughters, Candace and Ashley. I have 3 grandsons, Sean, Andrew, and Antonio Jr. I like walking. I like listening to different music, different style music, jazz, contemporary gospel, and even country. I attend New Covenant Fellowship Church, where the pastor is Pastor Bernie Miller.
Okay. You're being recognized by the NCBW Chattanooga Chapter of 100 Black Women for your entrepreneurship and economic development. What inspired you to focus on that as an occupation?
What inspired me to focus on entrepreneurship is during my time at home, I wanted to get into something where I could start helping people. I decided to go in real estate. That was a really challenge for me. I never did think I could do that. But after going into real estate and seeing the need, especially among the blacks, whereas they were trying to get into their first home, a lot of them couldn't come up with the down payment and our closing costs, I would actually go over to their homes and we'd sit down and talk about their needs, talk to different veterans, not knowing that veterans did not know that they could get into homes without any monies, just good credit. So my stint with real estate was very interesting because I helped a lot of first-time home buyers get into their homes. And even now I helped first, second, and third generations. Even now I have people coming up to me telling me that they thank me for selling them their home, their children, their children's children. I wouldn't trade anything for what I did to help people, because a lot of people just probably would not have had the opportunity if me, and there were some more that came and just helped them purchase their first home. After real estate, I opened my own janitorial business, whereas I have helped different people get from point A to point B. I have my 8A certification, whereas I don't have to bid on different jobs. I have a contract with the Federal Aviation Administration, as well as the Bonnie Oaks Reserve Center. So, yeah, my janitorial business, I'm still doing it. I don't do real estate anymore, but I do still have my license, so much for that.
Okay. Who was a mentor or inspiration to you growing up, and why?
My mentor was my mother. My mother was a very quiet person, but she showed us how much she loved us by doing for us. My mother would go to work sometime 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't get home till like 5 or 6 that afternoon. And we lived in a community, so my aunt would help take care of us. She was a single parent, so raising 3 daughters couldn't have been easy, but we did not know that we were poor. We did not ever do without, because she would come home, cook. I know now that she had to have been tired working those long hours, but she never did show it. I never heard her complain. She would also teach Sunday school. She taught the kids, they called her Candy Lady, and she was a very family-oriented person. So my mother is my mentor and my inspiration.
Okay. Tell us what you're hopeful for, especially now in today's society.
I'm hopeful that we can all get together and love each other, listen to one another, because a lot of times we're saying the same thing, but in different ways. At one time, it was something came out on Facebook, Do the dress look green or does it look blue? It might look green to me, might look blue to you. But we can have our differences, but we don't have to be hostile toward one another. So I'm hopeful that we can get together in love. I'm also hopeful that this virus will go away. I'm hopeful that my grandkids will be able to go to school and not be worried about social distancing. What does a 9-year-old know about social distancing? What does a 17-month-old know about social distancing? So I'm really hoping and praying that we can get together and love one another and stop all the bickering and the backbiting and the killing and the rioting. We can protest without destroying property. So that is my hope.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Mildred Taylor. Please tell us a brief something about you and your background.
Well, I was born in Decatur, Alabama, and my parents moved here when I was 5, so I've been in Chattanooga pretty much all my life. I have 2 boys and 3 grandchildren, and a set of twins. I'm proud of them. I started working with the state of Tennessee in 1986, and I worked with them for 25 years. I worked with them as a social worker, and then I transferred to be a probation officer. While I was a social worker, I worked with families, trying to keep families together and keep children out of foster care. And with the probation officer, as a probation officer, I work with young guys, especially young guys, trying to keep them out of jail. After I retired, I started working with Family Promise as a caseworker, working with families trying to trying to end homelessness. A lot of the families was homeless, and my job was to find them places to stay and try to help them with other resources so they could not only move into their own home, they could stay there and won't be homeless again. After working there, I went to work with Joe Johnson Mental Health as a case manager for the homeless that needed mental health and homes, places to stay. So when I retired there, finally retired again, that's my second, I retired twice, I opened up 2 independent group homes where I help elderly men that's getting Social Security find a place, give them a place to stay. And now I'm working as a, I guess, real estate mogul, a real estate person, buying houses and flipping them. And I don't know when I'll stop doing that.
Okay.
But I enjoy working with, also with my church. I do ministry at Silverdale, and I work with the ladies at Silverdale, teaching Bible study and helping them with community agencies, so when they get out, they can perhaps have a place to stay, help them get on their feet, whatever it takes to keep them from going back to jail.
Okay. You've been recognized by the NCBW chapter of Chattanooga for social work. What inspired you to focus on that as a profession?
Well, again, I like helping people. And when I started working with the Department of Human Services, I found it very rewarding to help people who was having a hard time or who was in crisis and helping them get their lives back together. And especially when it comes to the children, I found that if children can stay with their parents, stay with a relative, it's better for the child.
Who was a mentor or inspiration for you growing up and why?
Well, I had several teachers. I went to East 5th Street Elementary School, and then I went to Riverside. And one of the teachers that really I felt was made me more aware of the importance of helping, especially our people, is Coach Atkins. And he taught health, and he told us several things about being a black person in America that helped me understand some of the things that I needed to do. But once I became a social worker, I found that that was what I really liked doing, and that's why I stayed with Human Services.
Okay. Tell us what you're hopeful for, especially now in today's society.
What I'm really hopeful for is a real change. I know we have talked about change, and the recent events have really helped me see that we really need a sincere change. And the young people that's marching, I feel like they're serious, and I think they're the reason. I think they would be the reason that we will see this change. Hopefully, the United States as a whole will understand we are the human race, and the color would not matter. I can just hope and pray and do my part.
Thank you very much. All right, welcome, Ms. Varner. Can you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit of background about yourself?
My name is Edna Varner. I'm a native Chattanoogan, grew up right here in Chattanooga, down on M.L. King, which was 9th Street then. I'm from a very large family. Well, we call it large, 10 people, 8 children. I'm the oldest of 8, so I am very comfortable in a crowd. My family moved to Avondale, and we moved right across the street from a church. We're a really religious family. Every time the church doors opened, we were there. And we had a lot of religious traditions in our family. My parents were really strong education advocates, so we went to school every day. We had to sit at the dining room table and do our homework. If we didn't have any homework, you had to sit there and do something. And so I'm really proud of that. I really love my parents for all they instilled in us, strong work ethic, always do your best, and they were great volunteers. In fact, my mother won this award in 2006 for her volunteer service.
Okay. You're being recognized by the 100 Black Women of Chattanooga for education. What inspired you to focus on that as a profession?
I think I was inspired as the oldest of 8 because I helped my brothers and sisters with their homework, and I really loved doing that. The other thing is I absolutely loved school. I think I hit the teacher jackpot because every year I had a fabulous teacher, and every year I had a fabulous experience. In elementary, I was introduced to theater, the arts, and while some people would have said our schools were poor and they were definitely segregated, I never felt as if I got an inferior education. In middle school, I learned to be a voracious reader because our teachers introduced literature. In high school, just so many extraordinary activities. I was in the marching band with Samuel L. Jackson. When I left high school, it was my first time going to a predominantly white school. And I felt I was really prepared. There were books the other kids had read that I hadn't read, but because we grew up knowing that you have to work twice as hard and you have to be twice as good, that served me well. So I didn't struggle at all. And I just got my doctorate, a lifelong dream, just got it 2 years ago. I'm already retired, but my parents wanted that of us, and I wanted it for myself.
Okay. So who was a mentor or inspiration for you growing up, and why?
Well, I thought about that question, and while it may be cliche, I have to say my mother. I learned so much from my mother. She had me when she was 17 years old. She was a high school dropout, but she always valued education for us and made lots of sacrifices for us. And so she was a volunteer school patrol officer. Then they started hiring them, but she couldn't advance because she didn't have her high school diploma. So I saw her sit at the table and work so hard. She got her GED. When she won this award in 2006, she was chief of police, Chattanooga School Patrol. And I just admired her so much for that. I also learned to be a volunteer because I would tag along with her. She was president of the Forgotten Child Fund for many years. And so she was just a model that kept me wanting to give back to the community.
Okay, last question. Tell us what you're hopeful for, especially now in today's society.
I think what I'm most hopeful for is what is on everybody's mind right now, and that is dismantling systemic racism. It is so tragic that our wake-up call came with the death of George Floyd. And while there is urgency around addressing police brutality, what has happened is we have begun to realize that racism has gone on so long and has been so much of our culture that it's just normal. And that's why people say they can't see the inequities. But now that we've got everybody's attention, we have to address police brutality, but we also have to address all of the subtle forms of racism, especially the racism that begins when children are in school, when they do get an inferior education and they don't grow up with a hope for a future. So we won't solve the problems of race in our lifetime, but we have to hold ourselves accountable for making giant steps. So that's my priority right now.
All right, thank you.